For week 10, we've expanded the functionality of our menu app by adding the ability to list projects and also the ability to select a project. We've done this first by adding to our switch statement. So the cases we'll call the list project method or the select project method. The list project method is going to return a list of project objects. We get that by calling the project service fetch all projects method. That's going to print out a list of projects with the project ID and the project name. Project service, just like before, is going to be a pass-through to the data access object. So the project service fetch all projects is going to be just return the project DAO fetch all projects. Project DAO is going to follow the same data access format that we used before: opening a connection, starting the transaction, defining the prepared statement, executing the update of the query, and then committing the transaction. Look at the fetch all projects method. Start by defining the SQL statement where we're grabbing everything from the project table, ordering it by project ID. We're going to create a connection object. We're going to start the transaction. Our prepared statement doesn't have any replacement variables, so we're going to set the result set is going to be the statement.execute query with our SQL statement that we set up before. That again is going to return a list of project objects. So we start with an empty list, and then we're going to move through the cursor for each row returned. We're going to extract the information in that row and add it as instance variables on our new project object that we're going to then add to the projects list. Then for the second method that we added is going to be the select project. That's going to return a project and all the information, materials, steps, and categories associated. It's very similar. First, we're going to have the user input. So we're going to use our get int input and prompt the user for a project ID. We're then going to pass that through the project service to the data access object layer. In the DAO layer, our get project by ID method is going to run a SQL statement first, where the project ID is equal to the input variable set by the user. So we open a connection, we start the transaction. We start off with a blank empty project object. Our prepared statement has a set parameter with that user input. Then our result set, we're going to execute the query with, and if something's returned, we're going to set that as the project object variables. If something is returned, we're going to set the materials, steps, and categories instance variables, which are all collections, by calling 3 new methods. The methods are going to follow the same procedure, where we'll have a SQL query to gather the information, a prepared statement, a result set. We'll go through, and in this case for materials, it's a collection. So for each row returned, we're going to take the columns, make it the instance variables of a material object, and add it to the list. When we actually run the application, you can see if I press 2 to list projects, it's going to list all the projects. I loaded a couple into the database for an example. If we type an invalid number, like say 55, it's going to say 55 is not a valid selection. We can press 3 to select a project. It'll give us the list again and ask us to select. If we do an invalid selection, it's going to gracefully handle the invalid selection, say try again. If I give it a string, it'll also gracefully handle it and say try again. And then when I finally do select project that's valid, say for example, paint the house, the first one, it's going to return the object and then also the lists that were associated with materials, steps, and the categories.